So DBMS underscore SQL is a package. So the package contains set of procedures and functions. So we have to call those procedures and functions. We have to call those procedures and functions for executing. Okay, we have to call those procedures and functions. Okay. Let's see. So now we have a two, execute immediate and DBMS underscore SQL package. So the execute immediate command, NDS, it's an I2 dynamic SQL. It executes latest method. When compared to DBMS underscore SQL, execute immediate is the latest one because it executes directly on the database. Okay, so calling in the execute immediate. So calling PL SQL program. So that is the program. Calling PL SQL program means that is the program from where we are writing a dynamic SQL. And execute immediate is the command. So here we will pass your SQL statement. SQL statement what we are going to execute. So execute immediate this SQL statement. So what is the functionality? It's directly executes on the database and it's easy to write and it easy to the faster way. Easy to write and faster way. Okay, DBMS underscore SQL. DBMS underscore SQL. So this is the calling program. We have seen this in the last class. Calling program. This is a calling PL SQL program. And this is dynamic SQL packet or a procedure or a function. We are executing on. So from the calling program, we are calling a package or a function. Calling a package or a function of DBMS underscore SQL package. So if you are calling a procedure or a function, we will pass some parameters to it. So those parameters executes on the database. Okay, it's not easy to write as compared to the NDS. NDS in the sense is execute immediate. That is a NDS. Okay, so let's see. So what are the basic steps for executing a dynamic SQL? So the basic steps for executing a dynamic SQL is, first thing is, so we need to generate the SQL statement. So what SQL statement we are going to execute? Okay, so we need to generate a SQL statement what we are going to execute. Generate SQL statement dynamically. So we have to generate the SQL statement and then we need to write or execute those SQL statement, generated SQL statement. It can be a generate SQL means it can be a select or insert or update or anything or DDL command. Select, insert, update or DDL. Delete or any DDL command, the DDL commands. So and then execute this one. So first of all, why we have to use the dynamic SQL? Okay, in the last class we have seen. So why we have seen the dynamic SQL? So the dynamic SQL we have seen for two purposes. One thing is to execute DDL commands from the PL SQL, because as it is a PL SQL and the DDL command execution not possible from PL SQL directly. DDL command cannot be executed. If you really want to execute a DDL command from the PL SQL, we have to use a concept of dynamic SQL. First thing is to execute a DDL statement. And the second thing is to execute using an NDS or DBMS underscore SQL package. Two purposes. One thing is to execute a DDL and the second thing is to make sure the select statement which you are going to execute are not sure. Okay, so now we are going to see execute immediate. So we have seen whatever we discussed till now, that discussed in the last class. the execute immediate. So let's see a syntax of execute immediate. Execute immediate. Okay, so now we are going to execute. This is the SQL statement. This is the SQL statement we are going to execute. Optional into variable 1 and variable 2 and so on. Okay, and then and using parameter 1 comma parameter 2. Okay, using parameter 1 and parameter 2. The simple syntax. Okay, we are execute immediate this select statement. This is the SQL statement we are executing dynamically. Okay, so this is the SQL statement. This is the SQL statement we are executing dynamically. And so the into statement. If this SQL statement, okay, so this is the variables for capturing the data written by your SQL statement. This is the variables for capturing written by SQL statement. So this is the statement we are executing, right? So this is the statement we are executing. So if this SQL statement is returning any value, okay, so those values captured into these variables. Those values should be captured into these variables. And so now this is the parameters. If parameters passing to SQL statement. If this SQL statements required any parameters, those parameters will be specified in the using class. Okay, so the execute immediate your SQL statement. Execute immediate your SQL statement. So this is the SQL statement we are executing. Yes. So after successful execution of the SQL statement, if the SQL statement is returning any values, we have to capture that values into these variables. We have to capture the values returned by this SQL statement into this variable. That's one thing. And the second thing is, if this SQL statement need any input, so those inputs will be passed from here. Okay, so those inputs will be passed from here. Everybody is clear? So the execute immediate. So this is the statement we are executing, and this is the return statement, and this is the parameter required for your SQL statement. Okay, so the into and the using are not required for executing DDL. Into and the using are not required. Executing DDL commands, because the DDL does not return any value and DDL does not need any input. Only into and using are required while executing any select, insert or update or delete statement. The select, insert, update or delete statements. Everybody is clear? So the execute immediate SQL statement. So this is the SQL statement we are executing dynamically, and into variable for capturing the data written by SQL statement, and the using is for passing parameters passing to SQL statement. This is the into class, and the using are not required for executing a DDL commands. Everybody is clear? Everybody is clear? Okay. So now let's see. Write a program for deleting data from. I want to write a program. write a program for deleting data from any table for any condition. I want to write a program for deleting data from any table, any condition. Let's see. Delete from table name where condition. Any condition. So I want to write a procedure or write a program for deleting the table name and where conditions. This I want to execute. So we don't know the table name. I want to write a program. So during the program execution, I don't know the table name and I don't know the conditions. As we don't know the table name and conditions, there is no option other than dynamic SQL, because the dynamic SQL is required when you are executing the statement dynamically. Okay, so now let's see. Begin, end. So here first step is to generate the SQL statement dynamical. I want to generate it. So here this is the statement I'm going to use. So here, so the table name, the user will enter the table name and where conditions will be entered by the username. So here I'm declaring a variable. This is the table name I'm entering from the user, and this is the where condition. This is the SQL statement I'm going to execute. So I'm generating, I want to generate the SQL statement in this variable. Okay, so now I have a table name and where condition. So now write a statement, v underscore SQL is equal to, okay, so now delete from table name where so your t where condition. Okay, let's just print the output. See what I am generating is right or not. V underscore SQL. Let's see. So first, before executing directly, let's check it whether that is correct or not. Okay, the table name I'm giving the EMP where department number is equal to 10. See, delete from EMP where department number is equal to 10. So that statement is 100% correct. Okay, so now I want to execute this statement. Okay, so now this is the statement. Do we need to pass any values to the statement? Do we need to pass any parameters to the statement? No, because complete where we are giving. Okay, the table name, we have already table name, so no need to use using class. Does the delete statement returns any value? Does the delete statement returns any value? Others, does the delete statement returns any value? No, delete statement does not return any value. That's why, so into is not required and using is not required. The simply execute immediate and v underscore SQL. So how can I know the number of rows deleted? How can I know the number of rows deleted after executing this statement? How can I know the number of? So how do you get the count? Yes. So dbms underscore output dot put line table count. That means number of rows deleted are. So SQL percentage row count. That's it. EMP where DEPT number is equal to 10. So one row deleted. Okay, where DEPT table name, sorry, I entered the table name wrong, where department number is equal to 101. It gives the table or view does not exist because I entered the wrong table name. DEPT where department number is equal to 56. So the number of rows deleted are 0 rows because there is no rows with satisfying where department number is equal to something. Everybody is clear. So the first thing is here we generated the select statement which we are going to execute, and the second is simply executed the select statement. Okay, everybody is clear? Everybody is clear? Okay. So now, and write a program for finding number of rows for any table. I want to write a program to find number of rows for any given table. See here, what is the statement we are going to execute? Select count of stars to get the count. Count of star from table name. Count of star from a table name. So this is the table we are using to find the number of rows. Okay, so now this is your parameter. Okay, table name. So the vary is not required because that's I'm executing the count. Okay, so now here I'm getting the count. Select count of star from table name. Table name. Count of star from table. Execute immediate. So the number of rows are. So here the count returns a value. Here the count returns a value. So we need to store that result into row CND because as here so in the select statement we are getting only one value. That's why we are using only one variable here. If the select statement returns multiple values, here we need to use a multiple values. So put line the number of rows are CND. Here we are going to use a CND is to be declared. See, number of rows in DEMP table is 10. So give DEPT, so the number of rows in DEPT is 9. Okay, everybody? Clear? Yes or no, please? Yes or no, please? Others, please? So the simple statement. Okay, similarly, just a second. Okay, so now similarly, we can execute any DDL command. So now let's see. I want to create a table. So create table ABC number of 4 and B number of 4. I want to execute this from your dynamic SQL. Okay, so that can be done using your program. So this is the statement I need to execute, the DDL. So the DDL execution is not possible from PL SQL directly. So the only option we have is to execute a dynamic SQL. So simply, so this is the statement, I need to execute it. I can pass this as a parameter to this one and execute immediately. So no into is not required. And then this is not required simply. So the simple thing is to generate the select statement which you are going to execute. See here, this is the select statement we are going to execute it. Okay, but in the real time, this value comes from a procedure or a function parameter. This statement comes from a procedure or a function. This is a varchar variable. Okay, this is the string. Everything we put all the create table command in a string. We are directly executing this statement. That's it. Anonymous block completed. You can see the table. See, a table created with the two columns, A and B. Everybody is clear? So we have seen 3 examples. Okay. Anybody have any doubts, please? The simple thing is the generate the select statement what we are going to execute, and finally execute that select statement. Yes or no, please? Everybody is clear, or yes or no? Okay. So now the same programs which can be executed with dbms_SQL. Okay, but in order to execute a dynamic SQL from dbms_SQL package, executing dynamic SQL, dynamic SQL from, using dbms_SQL package. Okay, so now this one. So this contains a set of procedures and a function. So it's not so easy as your execute immediate. We have to follow some procedures and functions needs to be called. Okay, so executing dynamic SQL. Okay, first thing is it's a contains a, is a package. Is a package contains series of procedures. Contains procedures and functions. Procedures, functions and variables. Okay, so we have to call those procedures and functions one by one. We have to call those procedures, functions and variables. Okay, so now it contains a set of steps for executing dynamic SQL using dbms_SQL package. This is not that much useful. Nowadays, usage of dynamic SQL package is reduced because execute immediate is the more faster and more easy way to write. This is not like a most useful. And one. Okay. First thing is to declare. We need to declare a variable. Declare a variable for storing cursor. Storing a cursor. We need to declare a variable. Variable for declaring a cursor. So this variable should be a number type. Should be a number type. Number type. We need to declare a variable for storing cursor variable. Cursor. And the second thing is we need to open a cursor. Cursor by calling dbms_SQL.open cursor. So we need to open a cursor. We need to open a cursor by calling a open cursors. Okay. Now, and the second step is to generate a select statement. SQL statement. We have to generate the SQL statement. The SQL statement which is going to execute needs to be generated. And the fourth step is to associate generated SQL statement with this cursor variable. Okay, we need to open a cursor. Okay, open a cursor, assign reference. Reference to variable declared in step 1. In step 1. So here we are declaring a variable and this variable assigned to this cursor. Generate the SQL statement. So need to parse SQL statement. We need to parse SQL statement. Okay. We need to parse SQL statement using dbms underscore SQL dot parse. Using dbms underscore SQL dot parse. So need to parse a SQL statement using dbms underscore SQL dot parse. Here, after parsing, during this, associating and SQL with a cursor variable. Associate a cursor variable. The cursor variable in the sense is this one. This one. And the select statement is this one. Associate a cursor variable with the SQL statement. We'll see the examples. Okay, so the select statement. And finally, and now, bind any variables. Okay, if this select statement required any variables, if the select statements required any variables, we need to bind those variables. Bind variables. Okay, using and dbms underscore SQL dot bind variable. Bind variable method. Okay, so bind any variables using and dbms underscore SQL dot bind variables method. Super. And the second one is after, so this, if the select statement, whatever you have the select statement, if the select statement required more number of rows, okay, so that means more variables, 5 or 6 or 7 variables, those variables should be binded. So we have to call this bind variable that many number of times. We need to call 5 or 6 times. That depends upon the number of variables. Finally, execute the SQL statement using dbms underscore SQL dot execute. This, it is a function. Using a function, it returns a some number, success or failure. Success or failure. It returns a number, success or a failure. Now, retrieve any values written by select statement. Any values from select statement. After executing this select statement, if the select statement returns any values, so please retrieve those values. Simple. If the SQL statement returns any values, just retrieve those values. After retrieving all the rows, any values, in the sense is any rows in a loop. Rows from SQL statement in a loop, because it returns multiple rows. It can return multiple rows. The SQL statement can return a multiple rows. So we can retrieve each row. And finally, close the cursor. That's it. Using dbms underscore SQL dot close cursor. See here, these many number of steps we have to do. These many number of steps we have to do for the dbms underscore SQL package. Okay, for a DDL statements, these steps are not required. This one and this one bind variables are not required. For steps 5 and 7 are not required for DDLs. Required for DDLs. This is very complexity and very rarely used, because we are using mostly execute immediate. We can do everything with the execute immediate except one or two cases. Okay, so this I'm not suggesting to practice the programs on this one, okay, because it will give you the more complicated. So after finishing the class, I will send all the programs to everyone. Please go through it and it will be useful to you in the interview point of view. They won't ask much on this one. So just we can answer this and explain more on the execute immediate. I will send a programs. Please go through it. Then I can explain in the next class. Okay, after finishing this class, immediately I will send some couple of programs, small programs using this one. You can use this one. Okay, everybody. Everybody is okay. See, we have to do all these steps. We have to do all these steps for a simple program, but we are not doing all these steps in your execute immediate. Just see, generate the select statement and executes directly. That's it. So here we are not using much programming in the DBMS underscore, sorry, execute immediate. We are doing more programming in DBMS underscore SQL package. Okay, everybody. Yes or no, please? Okay, so now, so another important packages are DBMS underscore lab package, DBMS underscore utility package, and DBMS underscore XML package. These are the some important packages. Okay, so maybe tomorrow or over the weekend, I will send the examples of these three packages because we have so many packages on it. So lots of packages are there. Okay, so please try to get some examples, at least 3 to 5 packages. If anybody asks, they won't ask these questions in the interview. Okay, because see, these are all provided by Oracle. We will directly use those examples. But only thing is we need to know which package is useful for which case. Then we can write our programs. Everybody is clear? Everybody is clear? Yes or no, please? Yes. So tomorrow we are going to use SQL LDR. It's a utility for fast loading of data from a flat file into Oracle tables. So tomorrow we are going to see the SQL LDR. That is a very useful one and very important. SQL loader utility for fast loading of data from a flat file into Oracle tables. So tomorrow I'm thinking is the last class for PL SQL. Okay, so now again starting from Monday we are going to use the DDLs again. Starting from Monday we are going to start some DDLs. Okay, everybody, create tables and everything. We are going to have a DDL and a DCL command, and then tuning of SQL statements and everything we have in the pending part. Okay, and one thing I am not touching is Oracle architecture. Oracle architecture I am not touching because Oracle architecture this is irrelevant to the developer and it's very useful for the administrator. But I'll try if I have a time after finishing these three topics. Okay, and one important topic to everyone is, so we are going to have a class on 4th of July on the data modeling. The data modeling using Erwin tool. The data modeling class. It's for the data modeler. Sometimes Oracle developer may need to use data modeler using SQL Erwin and a SQL data model. SQL developer data modeler. We have two tools. Developer data modelers. Okay, everybody. Everybody is clear? So we will done. So we are going to have another this 1 week we can finish the DDL and the DCL, and then another couple of classes on the tuning, the data modeling using the Erwin class on 4th. So let's first stop recording.